We're going outside the box a little bit on this episode of the podcast. We are joined by an extremely talented guitarist. She started with the Iron Maidens, and she is going to be on tour with Alice Cooper and Judas Priest starting in the fall. And if you are LA-based and you go to any of the LA Rams games, she's going to be back there performing for them. She is Nita Strauss. Nita, it is a pleasure to have you. And like I said before, a huge fan personally of yours. How are you doing today?
So good. So excited to be here. Thank you guys very much. Out of the box is kind of my specialty. That's what I do. And this is out of the box for me too. So I'm very excited to get to chat with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, we always love to start with how people, where did they grow up? When did music for you, especially in this instance, really become at the forefront of your life early on and get you kicked off into the career that you have now?
Yeah, so I'm from LA. My dad was a professional musician who toured a lot before I was born. So my parents were very, very supportive, started touring at a very young age. So I've sort of always just had that background in playing music and doing it professionally and having that good influence, from my dad being around the business for a long time, telling me what's important and, how to come on into auditions, how to come into the right mindset and all that kind of stuff.
What do you do to get in that mindset? Because it's such a different thing that we're used to speaking on when we talk about, scientific or, things in that vein. So creatively for you, when you go into an audition or when you go into starting an album, what are the things that you do to get in that creative mindset that Nita's in you're in your zone?
I think the most important thing is just to have a really good handle on who you are as an artist and what it is that you can say or express or do that's different to other people out there, right? So if you're going into an audition, if you're going into a writing session or whatever it is, like there are thousands of guitar players out there that can play faster than me. There are thousands of guitar players out there that can play different scales or come from different training than me. But I just approach everything with what perspective can I bring in that's totally unique to me and totally different. And why should you hire me or work with me or create with me, And the answer is just perspective. The thing that you can offer that nobody else can offer is your authenticity. And so that's the most important thing, I think.
What makes you authentic for someone who's looking to collaborate with you? What do you bring to the table specifically from your personal experiences, from your, from growing up and having those influences with your dad in particular?
It's a great question. It's something that we could take a long time to unpack with anybody. What makes you authentic? I think musically, just that I have a lot of different experience for, a long time playing with a lot of different artists. I've been touring professionally for over 20 years, since the time that I was a teenager. And during that time, I've played with, pop singers and death metal bands and, hip hop producers and rock and roll bands and cover bands and original bands and everything in between. So I've gotten a really unique perspective on the different styles and genres and how to maintain your own authenticity, your own, musical identity as a guitar player while navigating all of these different styles of music and not overplaying or not sounding out of place in different gigs.
I see some content online about, you with your dogs. I've seen a couple of videos of you had two black dogs, or like two smaller dogs, and then stories about dogs you've had in the past. And then you have this record, The Wolf You Feed, which we're gonna talk about. I mean, so there may be like a thread here, and it seems like there might be in your art that is animal related. I mean, what's your relationship been like throughout your life with animals?
Yeah, I am definitely an animal lover. I've always had pets, dogs, cats, rabbits, chickens, all the things. Actually, all of my pets now are rescues, and have been for the last several years. So my oldest dog, Bentley, was my first, the first of the rescues that I have now. Then my second dog, Motley, I got her when we were on tour with Motley Crue. She was a rescue from a really great organization actually called Motley Zoo, which I think is a really cute name. And then our cat, Pantera, was a foster fail from Kitten Rescue LA. She was, during the pandemic, everybody was just trying to help out as best we could. And I reached out and said, hey, can I help? Can I donate? Can I give my time? And they said, well, can you foster a kitten? I was like, yeah, of course. So they brought this kitten over, and of course she looked exactly like my dogs, and the dogs just basically raised her. And so my dogs have never had puppies. They've never been parents, and they just started parenting the kitten. So like they would help her find the food. They would lick her to go to the bathroom. Like they would just like, it was the most amazing display of nature that I've ever seen in my own house. Like you guys probably see stuff like this all the time in the sanctuary, but like we don't get to see that, this like nature versus nurture type of thing of like, oh, here's a baby. I'm gonna take care of the baby. My dog has never had her own baby, but she started doing all the motherly things with the kitten. It was very, very cute. So I couldn't let anybody else adopt her after that.
Wait, is this the dog I'm seeing here that's named after you?
They did have a little,
okay.
They did have a little Nita litter, but that was
cute.
Long after I adopted mine. So one thing that the Motley Zoo people do, which I think is really cool, is part of their I guess you would call it marketing. I don't know if that's the right term for what it is that these organizations do to get the word out about the adoptable animals. But for lack of a better term, the marketing is they connect with local music promoters in the area, and they bring the adoptable dogs and cats to shows. And musicians, we just fall in love with the animals. There's no better therapy on tour than some puppy time. So. Everybody's always, taking pictures, posting selfies with the dogs, like really like getting the word out, getting the awareness out. So they get, I think, a lot of their adoptions that way. So when they have a band come through, a lot of the time they'll name the litter of puppies after the band members. So they happen to have a little Nita litter. They had little Hurricane Nita, and they had a digital little I think Summer Storm was one. They named them after my songs, so it was very cute. And my little Motley actually was part of the Motley Crew litter, so her original name was Nikki Sixx. But having been on tour with the real Nikki Sixx for a few years, I have so much love and admiration for him. But I think he would think it was weird if I had a dog named after him, so I named her Motley.
That's so cool. I mean, to speak to that part of it too, about not just the therapy part, but maybe even in the inspiration part, as Steven was mentioning before, about having dogs and animals on tour with you, or even in your own home. Where does that factor in, or weave itself? Because not only it weaves in personally, but I imagine professionally there has to be some link to these these domestic creatures that are cousins of the wild creatures themselves, and how that sort of plays itself out.
Yeah, definitely. We bring Bentley and Motley on tour with us with my solo band. So they ride the bus, they cross borders, they go all over the place with us and my band. And it's really like, it's a calming influence on the bus, especially you've got a lot of people crammed into a small space. It's very high stress. Everybody's tired, everybody's cranky, sometimes tempers can fly. And when the dogs are in there, it's like nobody's going to yell around the dog. It's not going to startle the dogs, So it's very healthy having the girls on the tour. The only caveat and hazard is, the way that the tour bus is set up with the bunks in the back. There are 4 bunks that are on the bottom. So if you are on a bottom bunk, you just have to be aware that you're going to get a dog from time to time, because they roam at night. They always start in my bunk at night, but they just go from place to place. So anybody that has a bottom bunk knows they're going to get some puppy time.
How good is, puppy time on a tour? It's so cool.
The best. You never want to tour without them after that. Unfortunately, I tour without them most of the year, but as often as I can, I have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's talk about this, because I've listened to your first album, Controlled Chaos, and it's, again, I believe it's mostly instrumental. I think it's all instrumental. Correct me if I'm wrong. And going from that type of an album to The Call of the Void, where you really dive into collaborations and getting into different vocalists and choosing these vocalists for these songs, how does that process begin for you? Because it seems a huge leap to go from simply instrumental, laying down tracks, to now figuring out what vocalists are going to play well with maybe the musical elements. So where do you even start that process?
Yeah, it was definitely very different, took a lot of thinking outside the box for me, because, excuse me, after writing my first record and really just having complete and total free reign musically, when there's no guest vocalist and the songs are not, trying to go to radio, trying to get on the charts or anything like that, there's no limits, there's no rules. The song can be as, 15 minutes long or 2 minutes long, and it doesn't have to have any kind of structure. And, it can be in any key and any length that, the parts can repeat or not repeat. And it's really just like therapeutic. There's no structure. I tend to write in a more structured way naturally, but there doesn't have to be, so it's just pure emotion. And then once you get the different guest vocalists in there, it's an amazing end result, but it's much more of a structured, regimented process. So you have to think about, who is this singer going to be, or who could it potentially be? How high is too high? How low is too low? How fast is too fast? And how slow is too slow? I didn't mean to rhyme that, but there you go. The song can't be less than 2.5 minutes, and it really can't be more than 3.5 minutes, if you want to get played on the radio, and it can't have this type of part and it can't have that type of part. And, it's just this end of that sentence has to rhyme with that end of that sentence, and it can only be so many syllables. And it's just, I think it's like going from writing free form poetry to then writing like a haiku or something, where it's like, okay, these are the limitations now. It's much more structured, and working within those limitations actually gives you a whole new type of creativity if you can sort of buckle down and do it, which was what took me the longest.
I mean, of course you've written songs in a variety of different ways, I'm sure, different processes, but in my experience, at least, the first thing that you do really, like if you start to write a record on a piano, that certainly guides the mood of everything else that comes after it. Or if you start with, some kind of drum loop, that certainly guides something, some form of the vibe. Even if you replace it later, it still has guided a lot of what comes after it. Yeah. And so I'm curious, with records that are so lead guitar focused, how do you start that? How do you generally start that process?
So I really had a lot of different ways of starting different songs on this record. When I write alone, when I'm writing instrumental music, I really don't write instrumental music with anyone else. Like that part, I really, it's very solitary for me. I kind of just like go off into a space. Actually, my husband and I built this studio sort of specifically for that. There's 7 layers of wall. You can't hear anything inside or outside. And like, this is the little like cave that I just come and do that by myself. And when I do it, naturally, I write in a very linear way. So I begin the song at the beginning, and I go through the structure of the song, and I end the song at the end. And that's just the way the storytelling works in my mind. It doesn't make sense to me to do it in another way. And I get the complete beginning kind of like locked down first with the drum beat, with the guitars and the bass, and then I move on to the next part and the next part. Then when I started working with different songwriting partners and different producers for the Call of the Void record, I learned a totally different way that I would say most people do it, which is that you start with the chorus first. You start with the concept of the song and the chorus, and the idea behind that being that everything is supposed to serve the chorus of the song. The chorus is the most important part, which I guess we can all agree on this. And so you write the chorus first, and then you build everything to support that chorus. So I can do that when other people are doing it with me, when I have somebody sort of in the room, whether it's my husband, Josh, who's a really, really great songwriter on his own, or, different outside writers or collaborators or people that I've worked with. But when I do that on my own, it's just like, I don't know what the middle is going to be yet because I haven't started the beginning. So yeah, it's definitely been a good journey of learning all the different processes and learning all the different ways. And I think, everybody that has ever tried to write music will agree there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just whatever way comes up with a good song.
When you were laying this album out, however that came across, and you get to, I guess when you get to this particular song, when you get to The Wolf You Feed, and you just talked about the chorus being the important part, where did this spawn out of? Was it when you and Alissa got into the room, and shout out to Alissa White, give me her hyphen. I can't remember how you pronounce her last name.
Alissa White-Gluz is her name.
Gluz. Okay, good. Alissa, I didn't want to get it wrong. So thank you, Nita. Yeah. When you guys get together, where did the chorus come from? And then how did the rest of the song spawn from that? Where were the pieces, and how did that come together for this particular part of the album?
Yeah, so actually, this song predated the collaboration with Alissa. So this was something
Really?
that we
Okay.
worked on in the studio, like not really being sure who was going to be the singer on it.
Hmm.
And it was, actually one of the first, not the first, but one of the first collaborative songs that we wrote, one of the first songs that would become a vocal song that we wrote for the record. And I, at the beginning of this process, was very hesitant to write with anybody and work with anybody. And I was really hesitant to try to come up with a lyrical concept because everything that I had done up to that point is a very abstract concept. You don't have to come up with exactly what the song is about because instrumental music is so subjective, right? You can write a song and I know exactly what it means to me, but maybe the listener hears something totally different. Maybe I'm writing a song about something mournful and they're hearing something hopeful, or I could go way long down that tangent of instrumental music. But I was just racking my brain on the way to this session. We were flying to Nashville and I was like, what, how am I gonna, I don't come up with concepts for songs. I come up with these vague emotional ideas and then I let them out, like, so actually the inspiration for this came from my mom. My mom is a Waldorf school teacher and her husband is a native storyteller. And so she is just
Oh, wow.
full of parables and fables and all kinds of goodness. And she told me the story of the two wolves. And I was familiar
Mm,
with it because I was in recovery. I've been in
that's
recovery for
cool.
10 years. But she told it to me, sort of like reinforced it to me and told it to me again. I was like, I could write something about that. And your listeners probably are intimately familiar with it, but for anybody that's not, I pulled it up just so I would have it here for reference. And it is that the native elder is telling his son or grandson about the struggle that goes on between two people. And he says, the battle between two wolves is inside us all. One is evil, anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The grandson thought about it for a minute, asked his grandfather which wolf wins. The old man simply replied, the wolf that you. And I love that allegory. I love that example. I think it is so true. And actually, funny enough, it is so true that when I started playing with Demi Lovato, like a year after I wrote that, I learned a song of hers called Feed, which is about the exact same thing. It's her Two Wolves song. And so I got to sort of like learn and play two of the same type of song at the same time. So we sat down. They said, "What do you want to sing about?" And I said, "Well, I have this idea about the two wolves." And everybody in the room was like, "Great, let's run with that." So we did create the chorus first. This "Tell me everything that you need." You're sort of speaking to the wolves, speaking from your perspective to your inner voice, saying like, "Tell me what you need to find the strength to be good, to be a light in this world." And so that chorus was like pretty well crafted. And then when I sent it over to Alissa, she is such a prolific songwriter. I didn't want to send her too much, even to work on lyrically because she's so good. And I'm so not, but like she is so good. So she came up with the verses, all of this like this very tumultuous kind of verses of the struggle within us all, trying to always do your best, trying to always do right, trying to always make sure that you're on the right path, and then we have that chorus that we came up with just the first day.
Expand a little bit more about your mother and this influence with this story, because what is it like to bring personal experience, personal pain, personal whatever it may be, into a writing session and a musical song like this? And how does that impact you throughout all of the different stages of the process?
Well, it's funny talking about my mom because my mom is not a metalhead, but she loves everything that I do because she's my mom. and, and so she sends me a video all the time. She put a new stereo thing in her car, and she sent me a picture of it, and she's listening to the Wolfie feed. And it's like she's never going to listen to any other song sounds like that, but she listens to this one, which I love. She told me, she's like, I listen to that song all the time. So like that's fun that it can make non-metal people enjoy the metal. Um, in terms of being in the room and being that vulnerable, that is very difficult. That really takes um, a lot of courage that I'm not particularly good at bringing out of myself. It's very hard to sit in a studio and be vulnerable with people you don't know very well. That's why I'm glad that Josh, my husband, is usually in there with me, always actually has been in there with me. Every co-write that I've done, he's been there in the room. And that's kind of like, it's easier than just me flying to a new city and sitting with somebody that I've never met and being like, what are you afraid of? What are your fears? What are your ambitions? What are your deepest, darkest, regrets? It's a hard thing to pull out of yourself with somebody that you don't work with often or that you don't know very well. So it's always really, really great to have him there, knowing that, okay, there's somebody, and he's a very, very talented songwriter. So he's a good influence in that way, that he can kind of nudge me and go, I think what you're trying to say is, when I'm there spinning around the chair going, I don't know, I don't know and he goes, I think what she's trying to say here is so and so. So it's good just having somebody in your corner, like whoever that person may be.
Yeah, I'm so curious, because you're communicating exactly what the song means to you and how you came up with the idea or the concept, and it makes me curious how you derive similar meaning or give meaning to your songs that you've written completely as instrumental. Even how you name the song, or where does the meaning come from, I guess, when you're in that process of writing an instrumental song?
Oh, it's so much easier for me personally. It's so much easier because I know exactly what I want to say. I know exactly what I want to write about and what my message is. And I don't have to tailor it for anybody. I don't have to tailor it for anybody or anything. So, for example, I have a song on my first record called Mariana Trench.
Cool.
And when I wrote Mariana Trench, I was under so much pressure to get this record finished. I had a very short amount of time. I, had just done this wildly successful Kickstarter, which I was not expecting, and my Kickstarter for my first record was 800% funded.
Wow.
We raised six figures, which I was not asking for or anticipating, So all of a sudden it's like, this is not some little project I'm doing for fun. This is now something that a lot of people have like put up or shut up, and they put up. They said, we believe in you. And I'm like, well, now I have to do it. And it was my first time ever releasing anything as a solo artist. And I was feeling this very like, a lot of pressure. So the Mariana Trench is the place on the earth with the most pressure, the heaviest place that we know of. And so that inspired the title of the song.
Wow.
And if you listen to the song, the way that, the note choices and everything just sort of serves that narrative of like feeling bogged down, feeling pressure, and like coming up for air and then being sucked back down, and really just trying to tell that story with the note choices and with the tempos and with the key of the song and all that kind of stuff. Another one on the same record is called Our Most Desperate Hour. And I wrote that song at a very tumultuous time in my life, going through my story and my recovery and everything. And at the end of this very tumultuous time, it all turned out okay, and there's a lot of time where you are in a very hopeless position and you don't know if you're ever going to come out the other side, but you do, you make it out. And that was sort of my narrative of the song. And when I put that song out, I asked on my social media, I said, hey, what do you guys think the story is of this song? When you listen to the song,
cool.
What do you think it's about? And I got tons and tons of answers. And I remember one person said, I envision a captain on a stormy sea, and the boat is being tossed around in the waves, and they can't see anything and they don't know where what's going to happen. And then at the end of the song, like the storm clears and they see the shore and they know that they're gonna make it home. And then another person said, I see a general on the battlefield and the war is raging, and the troops are dying on both sides. And then at the end of the song, they make it to the top of the mountain and the general looks out and he sees that they've won the battle. And like, I was just reading through all of these, just bawling with just tears streaming down my face because obviously, like, I don't know any generals that have been in battle and I don't know any captains of any ships, but like that is exactly what I wrote it about. And there's no description, there's no clues, there's no anything, but the way that I wrote it and I poured my own emotions into it we were able to translate it to something that people understood the overall story. So yes, in conclusion, it is definitely always about something. I think you can really tell the difference in instrumental music when people are writing just like cool, shreddy songs and when you're writing something that has a lot of depth and meaning to it. And I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. There's some songs that are just dope, shreddy songs, and I love them. And there's some people like me that just pour it out like as therapy. And has a lot of emotional depth as well as fun shredding stuff. So
while you're talking about it, it sounds like it must really strengthen your songwriting ability. I mean, lyrical songwriting ability to write so much instrumental music, because I mean that's really what makes it like a musician so profound, is when they convey some kind of message through sound absent the lyrics. And this is really the most direct and challenging way to do that. And I mean, you're doing it constantly, so it must. I don't know. I'm not saying it makes lyric writing easier, but it must strengthen the efficacy of your songwriting. Does it feel that way at all?
I don't know. I mean, I hope it does. I hope you're right. I just the lyric part is still something that I really struggle with myself, and I think it's just again because I'm just used to it's like a waterfall when I write. It just comes from somewhere and it goes. Like I don't really, when I'm in a good writing zone, I'm in a good headspace. Like I'm not trying to think about what part is going to come next or what's going to happen here and there. And when you get a really good songwriter, like someone like Lizzie Hale, who writes a lot of poetry and writes a lot of, I think that writing lyrics for people that are really good at writing lyrics, it's like that's how it is when I write music, so maybe I should start writing some poetry. I don't know. I think I need to strengthen the word part and not just the emotion part.
Coming from the first album to the second album and then collaborating in this way, in just listening to the way you're describing it and the way that your husband Josh helps you out and the way, Alissa helped you on this song, it almost, do you feel as though you were gaining a pack of your own? It seemed like this pack is helping you move through these emotions, move through these tougher times and helping you elevate your art and your creativity. Did it ever feel that way in that process?
Definitely so. And I would say more so on tour than in the studio. It's when you get out on the road that you get your true test as an artist and you realize who is in your pack and who's not. And I'm very blessed to say that as I've been touring as a solo artist since I released my first record. The day after I released Control Chaos, I did my first show. And since that time, we've really established the pack. We've really figured out who is going to be with us through thick and thin for the long haul and who's not. And that is the most important thing that you can have as an artist. And as an artist, you need to have the freedom to be vulnerable and not always be the one that gets shit done and gets, does the hiring and firing and this and that. Like you need to have people around you that will just let you be the artist, no matter how hands-on you are, you need to have the ability to be the artist and be a little emotional and like have people that will handle hard things for you, and whether that's Josh, whether that's my longtime tour manager, whether those are my band members, just people that will have your back and that will like roll deep with you no matter what happens, no matter where you're going. You're like, okay, as long as I have like these few people with me, we can go out into uncharted territory and we can do anything.
Man, no, that resonates so deep too, because it really hits to the point of a lot of the work that we do too, is people who, and young people mostly, who may feel that way, that they don't have their own pack and they're not able to get that maybe in their own lives, and then coming to the sanctuary and finding, maybe they resonate with one of the wolves there and some of the staff there. So that's such a great balance. when you were talking about when you released the song on Control Chaos and you asked, people what they thought of it, did you get the same sort of response with The Wolf You Feed? Because it seems as though, it's one of your more popular songs if we're talking about streaming and all the other stuff there. But what was the feedback that yourself, Alissa, any of the, what did you guys get when this was put out into the world? And because it was one of those songs that was it was in the early sessions of this album, and to see it come out, what was sort of the feedback and how did that sort of go?
So when we were writing this song, the first day, it was my first time working in this studio in Nashville. And when we left that day, I told Josh, I goes, that's what I want the rest of the album to sound like. Like, that's what I want, my music as a solo artist to sound like. And as it turns out, it didn't sound exactly like that, which is how it goes, I guess. But I definitely had that feeling. And at that time, all we had was the chorus, and we had these verses that just sound like blah, 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 just random syllables of screaming, and then we had this pre-chorus that was completely different, and then this cool chorus that we thought was going to hit. And when that song hit, we all knew, we all had a good feeling. We all were like, this is what we want. There's not a single thing that I would change. I love the mix of the song. I love Alissa's voice. I love, Josh's drum playing, and Kat, my keyboard player, who's my best friend. Like, she just absolutely nailed very lush keyboard parts, especially with the guitar solo. Like, you really need to have that beauty in the heaviness, to balance it out. So I couldn't be more proud of how the song came out. I'm so happy that the metal community agreed with us. I think we just hit 10 million views on that music video, that people responded. And it was cool too, because it was out of the box for me. People didn't really see me as an artist that did a lot of collabs. I had only done one up to that point with David Draymond from Disturbed. And then people didn't really know Alissa as a clean singer, which she has such a phenomenal clean voice.
She really does.
Her scream. So it sort of showed a very different side of us both, while still staying true to who we were at our core as artists. And I think that's what helped it hit, people seeing a different side of us. But it's not like we're going off and doing hip hop, or doing something that's like, oh, this is not at all what we like, but I guess we're going to make some money, So we just hit hard with a song that was really meaningful. And I think that's why it got the response that it did.
Yeah, that's so awesome. For anybody who's listening and they haven't heard the album, what's something because they've heard you pour a little bit of your heart and soul here with us, what's something you want people to take away from that song in particular and the album as a whole, as it continues to, percolate itself inside of the, society and people hearing this for the first time?
One thing that I did differently when I approached this record that I think a lot of artists aren't doing is I tried to give everything a positive spin. I tried to give everything a positive mindset, whether I wrote songs, about the duality of man or, internet trolls or anything else. Really, the overarching theme is overcoming and, authenticity. So if you listen to my music, I hope that is what you take away from it, because that's what I'm always preaching. And that's what I'm always talking about, that you can do anything, you can overcome anything. And that's the most important thing to remember.
That's awesome. Nita, this has absolutely been a pleasure to go on this journey with you, learn about your process, learn about this song a little bit deeper, and just truly awesome to hear the process from the artist's mouth. So this has been really, really awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. I want to come see the Sanctuary.
Yes, you have to come up anytime. You let me know. Tell everybody, obviously, they can get both Control Chaos, Call the Void on Apple Music. Just give everybody briefly, where can they find you on tour? What's up next? Give them what's going on.
You can get both my records anywhere you like to purchase music or stream music. The first one, which is all instrumental, is Control Chaos. Newest one, which features The Wolf You Feed, is called The Call of the Void. I'll be on tour with Alice Cooper all year, and you can find out everything else that I'm up to on social media at Hurricane Nita or nitastrauss.com.
You almost forgot your last question, though. You got to get that in there, John.
Oh, that's right. Oh, Steven, thank you. See,
I'm like,
this
what
is why
did I
Steven.
forget?
No,
Not you. Not you,
We've
me,
only
the
done
host.
it twice.
The host is
we've
dropping
only
the
forgotten it twice in 250 episodes, so it's not
50
not
episodes.
bad.
So this is crazy. Not bad. Sorry, my last question for you, Nita, is when you hear the word wolf, what is the thing that comes to your mind?
Well, now with the song, I'm cheating a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
But I am constantly trying to feed the good wolf. So that's what comes into my mind, feeding the good wolf.
awesome. It's a first. We like
That
it.
is, yeah, that's a
250
first.
episode.
Yes.
That's the first.
She hit the first. Oh my God. Nita Strauss. Everybody, if you haven't seen her live, go check it out. It is a out-of-body experience. I promise you. Nita, just hang tight while we sign off. Thank you again so much. How's to you all out there? Be with you next time. Bye, everybody. Looking for more information about Wolf Connection or the podcast? Please visit our website at wolfconnection.org, where you can donate, sponsor a wolf, or become a volunteer.